Come on, short straw. It's like having Zoom with high school students, which is what I've been pushing into, where nobody raises their hand, which is the opposite of Mary's class, where everyone's like, I'll do it, miss. I'll do it, miss. Don't make me be the mean chair. All right, Christina's laughing. She's in charge.
I always do them, but I will do them gladly. Not always. I feel like Adam and I do them often, but that's why I didn't volunteer. I will do them this time. I was just giving someone else the fun opportunity to do this.
I was trying to do so as well, but you know what I'm going to do as chair? I'm going to rotate the fun. And so next meeting, somebody else will get the joy of recording the minutes.
I would love that.
Okay.
Right. Sent us a template, correct, Rebecca?
Yeah. Yes. So tonight, just to kind of go over the agenda very quickly so people know what's coming up. Obviously, I am looking to keep this meeting as efficient as possible since we have been working diligently and we have a special meeting this Wednesday. So it is important to me that we stay on agenda, that we stay focused, and that we make some meaningful changes tonight. So we're going to have our call to order tonight. I'm presenting my screen with the agenda. We're going to approve the minutes, go through some subcommittee reports, talk a little bit about maybe what's coming up on Wednesday, Dr. McCall. And really, I really want to focus here on number 5, the 1000 series. And just to really get serious for a moment tonight, I've been frankly disappointed with the behavior of the committee over the last couple months. I don't believe this is the way that we should be functioning. I think that we need to come together and to decide on some norms for virtual meetings until Governor Baker has decided that we move to 50 people in a closed space. I will not be moving meetings to in-person because I think it's important that the public have a voice. With the 21 of us plus administration, we're already at 25. And so that would not allow for any members of the public to attend our meetings. So until that number is 50, we will be meeting remotely. Myself and my principal, who work hand in hand at our school, often tell our teachers, you cannot expect more out of your students than you expect out of yourself. So during our first days of training, to be very frank, my teachers were very adamant that their students have their cameras on, that they're in a quiet space, that they're dressed appropriately for meetings. But during teacher training, they had their cameras off. They were not interacting, they were not engaged. And so we had the conversation with them that you cannot expect more out of your students than you expect out of yourself. And so starting with those norms, I'm asking for all members to keep their cameras on unless there is an emergency or a connectivity issue. If we were meeting in person, we would have our full attention on the meeting. And I expect that this is why we're here. We all have distractions and things with children or things with families going on. And if that needs to happen, we also need to let the secretary know that you have stepped away from the meeting because that is the law. And so if your camera is not on, I do not know if you've stepped away from the meeting or not. And that also allows us to have a little more decorum, to really look each other in the eye and to really understand what's going on. So when we go through that 1000 series review, we'll be looking towards creating some norms for these meetings. But first and foremost, I do expect if you're in a meeting that you're engaged, that you're part of this meeting. And if we're going to have high expectations for the administration, high expectations for the teachers, we must have high expectations for ourselves. And that is first and foremost my concern tonight. So with that being said, and you guys know I don't like to be stern, but I am very stern about this. I want to go to the next order of business, which is the approval of minutes from the August 4th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion of those minutes?
I just have a question.
Yes.
It says on my template, it says Chair Weeks explained, it says that this would be deferred. Chair Weeks explained notes from the August 4th, 2020 meeting cannot be located. And she asked the member who took the notes of the meeting to please share. So who took the notes on August?
Yeah, I couldn't find the meeting minutes in my, I wouldn't have been able to vote on. I couldn't find them.
That was the wacky meeting where we didn't have power. Most of us did not have power that night. I have some basic notes. And so I was also going to ask tonight if anybody else has further notes I was completely out of power that evening. Does anybody else have anything other than the sketch I kind of have that I can give Rebecca?
Megan, I probably have some notes. I can go back to what I have and then can send them to you and then you can
That'd be great.
see what I have.
So I'll put together what you have and what I have, and then we'll put a package together for our next meeting.
So can I make a motion to defer to a time certain being our next meeting?
That would be in order.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? No? We'll go for a roll call vote on Member Brown.
Brown, yes.
Member Dennis.
Dennis, yes.
Member Smith.
Smith, yes.
Member Silva. Are you with us? I'm not seeing Asima. Member Mills?
Mills, yes.
All right. And last but not least, Member Young.
Young, yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right.
Sorry, my microphone was not working. I abstain.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to subcommittee reports. Again, please give an update of what you guys are working on, but also your goals for the year. I know those goals are adapting and changing as we go, but I do want to make sure, and I appreciate the cadence which policies are coming forward, but to really understand what are your goals for the year as your subcommittee. Scott, you're already unmuted, so you're going first. Legal?
Sure. So for the next school committee meeting, not for this special Wednesday, I'm going to ask to go into executive session. We have an MOA for Unit B from WREA to go over and vote on. And we are starting, well, actually, on 9/17, we met with the WRA to start the hybrid MOA negotiation, and we have a meeting tomorrow at 5:30. And just to let the committee know, I am going to add somebody to that bargaining team from legal. So it's just it's getting a little too much. So I'm going to add that a person on that. We did receive from the WREA email today that they do want to start formal negotiations for their contract that ends on June next year. So we have a lot to do.
You certainly do.
Yeah, and legal, we have a meeting. I believe it's next week. I kind of want our legal counsel there, Naomi Stoneberg, and she cannot meet that day. So I'm going to see if Rebecca can poll the members and see if we can all meet at the same time.
Thank you very much, Member Brown. Member Mills, I see you're also unmuted, so you can go next.
Yeah, I actually have a question for legal, if that's okay. Because I'm concerned about our busing decision and how we've gotten to the point that could put us in legal exposure for non-payment. And legal has too much to do, but I'm wondering if, since the school committee has voted the negotiated settlement down multiple times, if there's some point where some membership of this body, legal might be too busy, should be negotiating with the bus company.
Well, actually, Ken, I kind of agree with you. Legal, as you know, we negotiated back 8 years ago when we brought on AA, and legal also negotiated on the second contract with AA. So I would like to have it in legal again, and Joe Bartulis will be happy to lead that. So, because, I mean, I know we have a lot going on right now in bargaining. I am going to defer some of that to other members. And so, but I do believe legal should be the subcommittee that takes charge on that.
And that's a position that I agree with as well. At this point, it's become a legal matter. And so we will hopefully be transitioning those responsibilities to legal as the attorneys now need to have conversation.
So, Megan, I guess I have a question on that. When you say it's become a legal matter, I'm not aware that it has become a legal matter. Is there new information that's told us that this has become a legal matter?
There's not new information, but since the committee has now voted it down twice, and we need to make some very serious decisions in order to have busing ready and prepared for the hybrid model that we're all expecting in approximately 6 weeks. This is a matter that needs to move forward, especially with the legal ramifications of us not being able to pay or choosing not to pay at this point. And so the responsibility will be on legal to move this forward.
So it's not a legal matter. We're just choosing to use the legal subcommittee to try to bring the issue of a negotiated settlement to conclusion.
Correct at this point.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Do you still want me to go?
Do you have another, does anybody else have further questions for legal, I guess? All right, go ahead, Ken.
So we met for superintendent evaluations. Hello, by the way, I'm on this committee now because I'm the chair of this. So we met this morning, this morning, not that long ago, to just have our first meeting. So we talked about potential goals surrounding about potentially a strategic plan initiative around anti-racism and community building, around the modern classroom / remote learning, and potentially around student retention. So we had some initial conversations about goals. We talked about, we split up the indicators to find indicators we thought were appropriate from last year's report, from ones we haven't done in a while, and ones that link to those potential goals. We stressed to the superintendent that they should be leadership and smart elements to the goals he's creating. We're going to meet on the 7th of October at 6:30 to discuss all these things. We also talked about a goal for this year to begin to implementing stakeholder feedback. So with the chair's permission, one member of our committee is going to reach out to a consulting firm to get insight into what they can offer us for 360 reviews. I do want your permission for us to do that, though, since that would personally be representing the committee to an external agency.
And that is fine with me. I think that's something that was really important to the entire committee with the superintendent's current contract. So I want to get that moving forward as soon as possible. Does anybody have questions for Ken and his committee? Okay, seeing none. Member Young?
Sure. We haven't met since the full meeting last week. Just for where we're going forward, in addition to school opening, which we've been working on, looking at, there's a whole lot of policies that haven't been touched in some of them over 20 years. So we'll be going through those, and continuing to just monitor all the facility and security issues around reopening. It's the big thing. With Jeffrey Haynes leaving the committee, we're down to 2 people. So it might be worth talking to you about maybe adding a person or 2, because while meetings are super efficient with 2 people, it probably doesn't represent a broad viewpoint.
So Adam, would you like, if I were to reach out, ideally, would you like 1 or 2 members? Tell me your ideal situation. I can see what, and then I can see what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working with 3. It works well when everybody's available. Yeah, it might actually make sense for 4, but I'll settle for 3.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in an ideal world, it's 4, but if you can get 1 more, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll work on that this week.
Okay. Christina?
Yeah. So I just have a suggestion for a member, because education subcommittee typically meets at 6 to 7 before the school committee, and we also meet other times. But we have a member who can't meet at that time anymore, and she just let me know last week. So maybe she could join Adam's group. I don't know. It's Nicole Amos.
Okay.
She can't meet until 7 this was on Mondays. I don't know if her schedule's different other days, but she might be someone who's a candidate, because I don't see her being able to attend, half of our meetings.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. That's a good lead. I appreciate it. I'm not going to ask anyone here because I know you guys are so busy. Except for Adam, because he's already on it. Do you guys have questions about Adam, especially moving forward with what they're working on for reopening?
Adam, is the superintendent bringing you up to speed in regarding all the HIVAC that's going on in each building?
Yeah, so I mean just before the meeting last week, it was in the report for the meeting last week, but we went through building by building, and every system that there was an issue with, we kind of got a update on exactly what was needed. I mean, down to the level of like belts and fans, things like that. So we definitely went through it.
Good.
I think there's still more to talk about, but yeah.
Right. Are we having a hard time finding HIVAC people to work on any of the buildings, or are we in good shape?
I'll defer to Dale if there's an issue, but we've got someone in-house who's able to do a lot of the work, and we do have some contractors that we've had in, as well as someone they've identified to do the sort of independent assessment, looking at some individual rooms and looking at it that way. It's not 100% assessment, but someone who's outside of the district and can come in and just do a random sampling and make sure it all verifies.
And if
Okay.
I can jump in,
I walk past the Davis Hill school pretty much every morning, and I see the HIVAC truck outside. So
Yeah, that was one of the big ones. So
yeah.
and so I can tell you, Scott, that we have a pretty detailed schedule that's already based out. So we have timeframes for which the work is to be completed. We do have outside contractors as well as our own internal people working through these systems. So again, we're in pretty good shape moving forward with the timeline that we have right now. And we are the firm that we're using is ECS, and they're the company that we also used with the oil remediation project that people may remember at Jefferson. I was going to say here at Jefferson, but I'm in my house, but at Jefferson, as well as the PCB issues at Thomas Prince, that's probably 10 years ago, 11 years ago now. So that's the firm that will do the testing. And we still use ECS to do the testing at Thomas Prince every year as well, the air testing.
Great. Thank you.
yeah, and just one thing to bring up in relation to that, we're getting all the systems for airflow and all that up and running prior to the students going in. There were still a few outlying issues related to heating and things like that they're on schedule, but some of that may fall after the October 5th opening, because the heat for that won't be on there necessarily, but the systems will still be able to run. And then I forget the exact details, but there was like a big roof system that was more preventative maintenance that would be happening this winter.
Central Tree.
Yeah, at Central Tree. So it was just, so there'll still be work ongoing, but it's not issues that affect opening.
Okay. We predicted a much higher fuel cost going forward, because I read in the TNG this morning regarding the Worcester Public that they're expecting a very high amount because they're going to be heating with the windows open and things like that. So do we have...
It's tough to predict. I mean, we saved a lot last year because I had them shut the boilers off as soon as we kind of emptied the buildings. But this year, I already talked to Dan about this. We're all filled. All of the tanks are filled. We filled those at the end of the year last year. So that's the good news. We didn't do that the year before last. But we are going to blow through oil. And I'm hoping it doesn't, this is very cold for this time of year. And typically we don't turn our boilers on until well into October. So
Thank you for your questions, Member Brown. Do other members have questions? Okay, we'll go to Member Dennis. If you could turn your camera on, that'd be great.
Sure. Hopefully my connection will stay stable while I do it. So we reviewed the fiscal year 20 budget as it respects to closeout of the fiscal 20 budget, looks like we're landing at about, we expect to land at about 150K balance. We did have $1.6 million in funds that would be rolled over to this year. We spent a considerable amount of time talking about fiscal year 21 budget. Currently in fiscal year 21, it looks like the administration is operating under the assumption of level funded from fiscal year 20. We are still trying to get an assessment of, or a refreshment, I guess I should say, of what our updated revenues and expenses are projecting to be for fiscal year 21. We're still awaiting that information. That's not simply in rough narrative form, but actually written down for us so that we can review it. It is noteworthy that we have a $1.6 million carryover from last year, but we're still modeling a roughly $4.1 million shortfall from the budget that was passed. So we need to understand that better. And then finally, we'll be, probably within just a couple of months, starting to turn our attention towards budget planning for next year. And this committee is watching very closely the decrease in enrollment or the increase of students that are leaving the district and what that portends for financial impact. And if you were to take, strictly the foundation dollars that are associated with 300 students, you're looking at over $3 million of impact as of the numbers that were presented to us at the last full school committee meeting. So we look to continue to have those numbers updated and continue to track what that potential impact might be. And that's it.
Thank you for your report. Does anyone have questions? I guess I have one if no one else has one. So Mike, I had been working with Representative Ferguson and Senator Goby, who seem to see these numbers in every district across the Commonwealth. So this is not a Wachusett issue, it's a statewide issue. And they have been committed to working through some stopgap measures based on the number of pupils who are leaving districts in every district of the state. So I'm wondering if you also had conversations or if you need me to help facilitate a conversation in that matter.
I have not had any conversations. It sounds like you're engaged in some type of conversation. I'm not sure what that means, but in terms of what kinds of measures are being worked on, or whether or not that's something that we can look forward to factoring in as a budget assumption for next year. I'm happy to have any kind of conversation with anyone. So
great. Dr. McCall, have you heard further from our reps in the state? Okay. I will then put that also on my to-do list. I will reach out again this week. Kim's looking forward to our updated numbers, and she's tracking them carefully. So I'll reach out to her again this week, and Mike, I will CC you on that email and let her know that Business and Finance is concerned regarding this matter.
What I can tell you real quick, Megan, is that the superintendent's listserv did collect information pertaining to enrollment numbers and, where there were decreases, some increases and so forth. So so MASS collected that information and they're analyzing that. They're also going to share it because there's a big push on it with our group as well as with the Mass Association of Regional School Districts, MARS, to ensure that this doesn't affect our students negatively next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And if you do, if MASS comes out with that full report, would you mind sharing it with the committee, please? Thank you. Christina, do you want to go?
Right. So we've been reporting regularly at the regular school committee meeting. So I don't have anything new to report since our last meeting last week, but I can tell you what we're doing in the future. At our next meeting, we're going to start working on the district indicators. So we're really excited about that. And Deputy Burlow is pulling some things together for us so that we can start to think about what the education subcommittee will bring forth to this committee in relation to district indicators. That's it.
Thanks. Do you guys have questions for Christina?
Just real quick, if it's okay, when we had discussed district indicators way back, we had talked about indicators of student performance, but also indicators of staff satisfaction. I think we have a policy that says we have to survey the staff every other year for staff satisfaction. We put that in when we had those new hiring policies, probably like 5 years ago. So I don't know if that's part of it, or if even just results from a TEL survey or something is part of that, or if that's more of a management question.
You weren't directing that to me, were you, Ken?
It's sort of to Megan, I guess, in the sense of, is when they're talking about district indicators, if we're talking about things that aren't just educational outcomes, is that something education is being tasked to look at, or are there other district indicators that a different committee would need to consider?
I mean, if I, just kind of stepping back from the task I've handed them this year, they're really developing a whole new system. So I would think it would be more appropriate for us to be able to handle, and I'd be happy to put that on new business for our next meeting to really look at our indicators of success in regards not just to teachers, but also administration, principals, assistant principals, and the like. So I'm happy to put that on our agenda, but I don't want to put that on education's plate if that's amenable to everybody.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure I understood what we were doing for district indicators. So my understanding from one of our meetings, I don't know if it was July or so, but we talked about each committee would come up with 2 or 3. Are we still doing that? Because Ken wasn't part of the committee then, so we should review for him.
Yeah, absolutely. That we would all take some responsibility. I wanted education to kind of take the lead on this and really kind of garner a framework because I don't really want things to really be pulled out of a vacuum. So I think, Christina, if you guys have that first meeting and can kind of develop a basic framework, and then we'd be able to task the other subcommittees with kind of supporting that work, whereas you guys really are kind of leading the work. I think it is, it's something that you can delegate when appropriate. And I don't want to make it like every group has to have 2 to 3 and really kind of have a stronghold on that. But where appropriate, I think it should be delegated appropriately.
And I think it's good too that we're starting it, because I'm thinking, like, of course we'd have some for facilities, but they're pretty busy right now
Right.
with the opening. So, or even legal. So maybe even, maybe there's just a small start with education, and maybe it's business finance or something that has some measures that we start with some of our indicators this year and then next year. But I know that I'm looking forward to the conversation. And when I spoke to Deputy Superintendent Burlow, he was also excited because, of course, our big part of our business is education. That's what we're doing. So we're looking forward to the conversation.
And I think that's also, with diversity and anti-racism, they've had some. I mean, Asma's going next, but I've done my best to go to all your meetings unless they're kind of overlapping. But they've had some really powerful conversations. But I think for them, it's really kind of digging into what their next steps are. So these indicators might be a perfect fit to allow them to kind of move forward with those next steps. Ken, does that answer your question? Okay. Speaking of Asma, are you with us, hon?
Yep, I'm with you guys.
All right, Chair Silva, take it away. I see your connection's a little unstable. If you can turn on the camera, that'd be great. And if it's not working, I understand.
Yeah, if I do, it might break up. But I have a quick update. We had a meeting and we've decided we will meet as often. We originally had decided to meet once a month, but we are going to take it meeting by meeting. And we had, similar to what you guys heard on the regular school committee meeting, we had a long length of some of the comments from students, and it was pretty powerful. We took to-dos for looking at what kind of diversity of different aspects of diversity when it comes to race, religion, different histories of different countries from the curriculum. And Brendan will be coming back with some of the asks that we had for him. And we are scheduled for a meeting tomorrow night.
Great. And then moving forward with just kind of your charges, Asma, like what, so you're going to go through curriculum first and then you're kind of moving to the other areas after we look at curriculum?
Yes, right now we're going to look at curriculum, but I'm waiting for Brendan to give us more information on the other group that he said is going to be meeting with, I believe, the public and students, and kind of working in conjunction with what their concerns are, and we'll address them as we go.
Okay. Do you guys have questions for Chair Silva? Seeing none, that's our committees. Management is here. Next on our agenda tonight is the COVID-19 school closures, next steps and plans. Obviously, this agenda was written previous to us calling a meeting on Wednesday, but just to get you guys up to breast with what I'm planning for Wednesday, I have received, as I'm sure many of you have received, quite a large quantity of very quality and thoughtful questions from the public since the survey went out on Friday afternoon. What I've been able to do, obviously those questions that go to questions@wrsd.net, I put those in a special folder to be read out loud. But in order to ensure that the administration is able to answer those questions and not just have me read them and then the public not get the answers that they want. I've worked today to cull the questions out of the emails and develop a Google document that I've shared with the superintendent that has continued to be added to. So between tomorrow, really through tomorrow evening, if further questions come in, I will add them to the Google document. I'm making sure the questions aren't redundant, that they're clear and straightforward, but also really kind of give the public the assurance that they will be answered. So my plan for Wednesday night, since we meet next Tuesday, we'll begin with public comment, which probably will be at least 20 minutes because I do legally want to read aloud the public's questions. And then I'm going to turn it over to the administration where they'll provide a presentation that hopefully answers as many of the questions as they possibly can. At that point, we will move to adjourn. I don't find this forum exactly what we want to have for a back and forth between school committee members and the administration. I really want this meeting to be strongly focused on the needs of our constituents, and they have voiced their concerns and they have voiced their questions. They're not our questions at this point, they're their questions, and I want to give them the respect of really having the floor on Wednesday evening. When we come together on Tuesday, which is only 6 days later, that will be our time to speak, our time to ask questions, especially if the answers from the administration kind of leave some gaps in our mind. When I really kind of considered what to do all weekend with this meeting, I found that to be the most respectful way in order to allow the public to have voice and for us not to take over. So I hope you all don't object, but that is my plan for Wednesday at this point. Dr. McCall, do you want to provide some updates? And members, if you have questions, please feel free to just unmute and ask them. We have a small group tonight.
Yeah. So thank you, Chair Weeks. We what we're going to do is, we're going to look at, Bob and I met today for much of the day to look at the, not only questions, because I received questions as well over the weekend. What we're attempting to do is just kind of pull together as many reasonable responses as possible. We're also, one of the main themes was this isn't enough time for us to pull all, to think through this. There hasn't been enough time to really have our kids engage in remote learning. So we're going to extend the time by which people have to fill out the survey by a couple of weeks. So we're going to give them more time to do this. I think that will ultimately be helpful, with also more information that will be, coming out around, really what the hybrid model looks like, what more details around the remote model. Because again, part of this also gets tied back to the negotiations that we're currently in with our teachers union. And we have that meeting tomorrow night at 5:30, as Scott mentioned. So, we do have a couple things that coincide at the same time. So, we can talk at a 40,000 foot level with certain things. I can have much more detail with other items that we're pulling together. But again, we're also looking at just ensuring there were a lot of individual questions. That was one of the things that I noticed. Just about, well, how are kids going to be wearing masks in this school, and what's going to be how are kids going to go up the stairwell in this school? And it was, so and again, I think as we kind of talk through this today, so we're meeting with our building principals tomorrow. They've already shared a lot of information out with families, but we're going to ensure that they have a common template in terms of a document that goes out that kind of outlines everything from mask wearing to buses coming in and out, entrance and exiting the building, fire emergencies, using the restrooms, cafeteria, all those types of things. So we're going to have all that in there as well. But again, I believe that will help alleviate a lot of the issues that I read about over the weekend. And in terms of some of the other things, as Adam mentioned, we're still spending time, going through the buildings, doing the HVAC work, doing plumbing work, because there's a lot of plumbing that goes along with HVAC. So we've, contracted out with a plumbing firm that's been working for us for many years now. We have a couple of outside companies that are also coming in to do more comprehensive work, which includes replacing, basically almost entire systems. So they're all on target to have work done, through much of October. And I think Adam mentioned this, any spaces that are going to be utilized by students coming back in October, on October 5th, those are already being vetted now to ensure that they're all set and ready to go. PPE is all being distributed next, Tuesday and Wednesday, I think, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong.
We're going to begin on tomorrow and Wednesday, and then we're doing a second round next week to all the schools, and all the rooms should be set up after that.
So, thank you, Bob. So we, again, we're looking at a couple different things. We up at the high school today, looking at the high school schedule. Again, one of our issues comes down, and this is something that a lot of high schools have found, just space and time to provide lunch for students. So when you're talking about 900 to 1,000 students all attempting to have lunch during the day, you end up having, not only a half an hour lunch period, which you have to provide because you need to give teachers time for lunch, but you can't get enough people in through the system. So we're dealing with that, looking at a couple different options, and that'll go out there as well. But we're pretty confident we're going to be in a good place. So we'll be able to share quite a bit of information by Wednesday, and then even more before we ask people to submit any final information for the survey. Bob, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you covered a lot of it there, Daryl.
Do members have questions?
I do, if it's okay.
Yeah, of course.
It's just sort of a process question, comment. I'm not sure what it is, but we approved a reopening plan, and I feel like we don't need, as a committee, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, to know like which direction people are walking down the hallway wearing masks. But I do think that there is some substantive changes to your plan that you've made, bringing all the kids back on the day instead of just partial grades and whatnot. I would think it'd be appropriate. I defer to the chair in terms of Wednesday's meeting, but that on Tuesday's meeting next week, that we do have a substantive discussions about the curricularly rich, safety-rich questions that parents have brought up. Things like, and in many of the emails have said things like, and I'll admit these are things, questions I've asked you I've never had answered of, what is my kid's education going to look like the days where they're remote and the other kids are in the classroom taking the teacher's attention? Are we going to move the kids away from their teachers if they're remote? I mean, I think those level questions are ones that, while I respect the public and we have to have their say, I think as a committee, we need to have those conversations too before the public's asked to make a decision, because those are really curricular. They're, I think, core to things that are our business, right? So I do hope that, we have, I was kind of surprised to see that come out without the school committee. Surprised isn't really the right word, but we'll use surprised to see that come out without the committee seeing it first, in terms of that process. So I hope that we don't repeat that in any way.
And I want to echo Ken's point, just to get the survey on Friday without any heads up. I think that that's a move that we can kind of do a better job on in the future. I think Friday was like a very appropriate place to say, hey, great first week. So glad we made it through it together. Early next week, you'll be receiving a survey that will ask you your choices for next year. So I just think that that type of communication and messaging, especially when people's anxieties are so high right now, are really paramount. Ken, to kind of your very specific points regarding teachers and that sort of thing, those are the top questions I'm getting from parents. And so those are included in the document that I'm putting together. But I do want us to have a substantive conversation on those most salient points come next Tuesday. And I think that it would be appropriate to get some of those questions in advance so we can really kind of form that discussion in a very comprehensive way rather than going around the table and hope they kind of pop up at some point. So expect to receive kind of agenda communication with me after Wednesday's meeting.
So Megan, if I may, I would go one step further, which is to say, I think that I think people are becoming aware of the special meeting on Wednesday. I think that there are a number of questions, the substantive ones of which Ken just mentioned. I guess I would say that while I can certainly respect having this as a dedicated session for parents to ask those questions, if we're not answering, or if the administration is not answering those questions, I'm not sure what much value they're going to take away from it, other than the decision has been extended by 2 weeks. So, while I look forward to us in the school committee being able to have the discussion, it sounds like we'll have that discussion a week from tomorrow. I certainly hope that the administration is prepared to, lend substance to those varied questions, because people, the occasion of the survey has raised the question, and people will want to know the answers.
Yeah, Mike, I agree with that wholeheartedly myself. And I think to that point, Bob and Daryl, while you're on here as well, the committee meeting will be very informative for people, but I am very aware. And one of the things that is most important to me is equity. That not everyone watches the meetings, just as not everyone is on those social media channels where a lot of this discussion happens. So I'd hope some sort of kind of FAQ document would then go out to families to give them this pertinent information, especially the most substantive information, probably at least a week in advance to the end of the survey, because I don't think, kind of doing it in the piecemeal way is fair. Some of the questions actually I got from constituents over the last day or so was stuff that we've answered in meetings, but I don't think that they've formally gotten it in their hands. So unless we do so, like the things about masks, right, Daryl? Because I think you've gotten a few of those too. Like, will my child have to wear a face mask during the day? And I'm like, we've answered that, but I don't think we've like explicitly answered it like in just a nice FAQ bullet by bullet to families. And so that type of equity is something I'll hang my hat on, and that's the hill I will die on. So I want to make sure that information does get out to families.
And I agree, Megan. Out of the, we have 66 questions right now that we're looking at that we'll build an FAQ around, but also, I also want to have those school-based plans so that it's very easy to see, okay, my child goes to Thomas Prince, I can see when math breaks are going to happen for what grade level. And a lot of this information's come out already through schools and teachers, but might not have been commonly or easily found, perhaps.
So just to be clear, I think the questions that I'm referring to, and that perhaps Ken may have been referring to as well, is not necessarily school-based questions or questions about mask use or mask wearing, but really questions around, simple things like, is my student's teacher going to change? Is time on learning in a hybrid model actually lower than a remote model? How exactly does, going on for 2 days, being off for 3 days work? Will I be, is there going to be cameras in the classroom? To me, these are some of the questions that are coming forward that are very reasonable questions, that are not building specific, that I hope that we have answers to when we meet on Wednesday.
And I might just humbly suggest that to Chair Weeks's add on to a corollary to Chair Weeks's comment is that it might benefit administration to consider whether they want to send a message to the community saying, we've heard concerns, we plan to extend the deadline, there'll be more information forthcoming. Because I think people are probably having really difficult conversations tonight or tomorrow night that don't read all the social media, thinking, what are we going to do with our kid? We don't know what to decide. And then, or they're going to fill out the survey and be mad when you make them fill it out again. You know, it would seem like something to consider to send that out so that everybody hears that.
We are. So Ken, I was working with Barry this afternoon on because this is done through Power School, it's a little different. So I wanted to know if I could offer you up the opportunity to go back into the survey and make modifications to it versus redoing the survey. So he was looking into that. So that will go out tomorrow. So we'll have something that has clarity around that, including the extension.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I just have a couple comments. So just thinking about the questions that are out there in the community and how some of this, to your point, Megan, is about it's about information. So people are they're anxious about what school is going to look like for their children and for them. And I'm thinking about my work district, which of course I can't help but compare us to because I work there and live here. And they did although it was a nerve-wracking summer going to all these things, they had a lot of informational sessions for parents. They did them at a district level, and they also had them at a school building level as we got closer to the school year opening. So for one of the things they did I thought was really helpful was they had, just like we have in our community here, they had community members that served on the district reopening plan that were medical experts in their field. Like you've shared, we have a number of individuals. And these people volunteered their time to do a Zoom, with the community, like a webinar type format. And parents could submit these questions, which I know Ken is saying doesn't matter which way you're going down the hall kind of thing. But to some people that does matter. Like for example, I'm still asking that question in a school I work in, but we'll find out in 2 weeks which way. But those kind of things to some people, myself included, really matter because it helps you feel a sense of control. And people want to ask their question. And to Mike's point, want to get them answered. And sometimes people have questions that we haven't thought of because you're thinking of so many other things. And it's really helpful to get these questions. So in Northborough, Southborough, they did a couple of the webinars with the medical experts. They did some just with the district leadership who came on. And then we did some with the building principals and the leadership in the buildings. And gosh, it was a lot of work and a lot of meetings, but I think it helped people and helped teachers and helped the community members. I'm wondering if maybe as we get closer to students coming in the building, that might be something that we do at least with the school building, like how would the school buildings work? But for now, I'm thinking about our role as a school committee, and I feel like the school committee has become this, like Megan, you're saying people should have their voice heard. Well, yes, they should, but is the school committee venue that we're having this special meeting to share this information? It seems like that could have happened outside of a school committee meeting where I feel like we're starting to be like school committee, school district, against the community. And that's not what we are. We're all working together. And I guess I would have rather, instead of a special school committee meeting, that instead we had a district presentation that everyone in the community who has children is welcome to attend. Because then it's not I feel like it's where it's us against them and us and them, and it's not supposed to be like that. So I just like us to think moving forward after this meeting on Wednesday, how we do more informational sessions so that we don't have to call these emergency school committee meetings. And that's to all of us, because these are important questions. We want to get them answered. I also know that our district administration is working their tails off trying to get things set up, and it's hard, and they're understaffed, but this is important, and they know that too. But maybe if we can plan out over the next 2 weeks, maybe that's something, Megan, you can help facilitate a series of sessions where people can come and have questions answered. That doesn't involve you're being held accountable to school committee kind of thing,
Christine, I couldn't agree more. Like I hate calling these special meetings just because I think they're forced, right? Like and it becomes like, just like you said, like, that type of decorum and the type of relationship we have with one another is just kind of put at odds during these. And that's a suggestion Daryl, I've made earlier this fall, is to have a cadence, right? So if you meet with your principals tomorrow, and I just got off a grade 12 parent information session myself, and we promised the parents, and we're doing it by grade level at a very small school, but we promised them once every 6 weeks, no matter what, because things pop up, concerns pop up, and people just really need to feel heard, and they really need to feel supported. So if maybe the district commits to it quarterly, and then maybe the building principals commit to every 5 weeks, you would then have a cadence of almost once a month, parents having an opportunity, especially when you don't have community, right? And that's what you're trying to build virtually right now in your classrooms. You're trying to build community with your students. But the isolation, I think, that parents feel on this end, I think if the administration and the district really commit themselves, and maybe that goes back to goals, right? That two-way communication, like we are committed to speaking to our parents once a month in some shape or fashion. And then also, again, to Christina's point, previous to these important decisions being made, because this won't be the only one. This is a big one. This is a really big one, but there'll be more, right? So we need you to get the survey done. We're having an info session X, Y, and Z nights, or days, and daytime works for a lot of people as well. I know it's really hard for the leadership team. You guys are spending every evening and every day working. And I know I can speak for myself, and I can speak for Member Brown because we've spoken, but we're tired. We're really, really tired, and tired in a way that hasn't prevented us yet from doing a really good job at all our jobs, but it's starting to get there. So I think if we plan in advance and start being proactive rather than reactive, like it's my goal to reshape how this committee is running right now, but it's hard to do without having that two-way communication between all the stakeholders that we know are important. Sorry to be long-winded. I don't usually get to talk, so this is kind of nice.
Thank you. I'd also say when we do the next email, to also, if you could use I don't know what we call it here, like the one call too, the phone call. I almost missed the survey until my husband told me, it just got lost in my email. So just, how you do like the phone call that said, or did you make one? I never checked my phone.
Right. Typically the past couple of ones that I've sent out, I've just sent out an email blast through School Messenger. I haven't done a voicemail, but I can do that next time where I'll say, then they get to hear me and I can say school's canceled tomorrow because of snow.
Yeah.
So Megan, I mean, I want to emphasize the point that I think you made, and let me say it a little bit differently. I see us calling, or you calling in this case, a special meeting as filling a void. And fulfilling a need that wasn't being met. And in this particular case, as was true, about a month ago when we were looking at our reopening plans, the case was that a survey or information went out about a survey that needed to be completed with very vague information with no plan that was apparent to anyone about how that would be clarified. And so, this special meeting I see is filling a void that may not have, or we did not see a plan that would otherwise be fulfilled. So I guess I would make the very explicit ask of the administration, please limit the occasions for which we need to hold special meetings. And you can do that by having these information sessions with the public and giving them an opportunity to understand, what these plans are, and give them an opportunity to ask questions. And then we won't have to do it.
And if you don't mind, just one quick thing too. I encourage the administration, they're working hard, there's only so much time, but just kind of a clarity, make sure you get it right before you send it out to them. Thinking downstream, questions like, you come to a hybrid plan, you got some kids remote, then you got kids who are sick, then you have to shut down again. Be thinking forward about like, how does this decision affect the next decision, so that we're not reinventing the works, all the time and putting people into the turmoil. And Christina, I also wanted to apologize if you thought I meant your concern was important. I thought those are things the school committee didn't have to discuss. Like, I think they're questions we have to answer, but they're not like school committee level decisions that we would weigh in on. But they're still important. Yeah.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
Ken, saying placed for them, but this is why people are asking, because they don't know.
Yeah, so I appreciate all your guys' comments. That was really impactful, but definitely, Ken, to your point as well, looking ahead, because you don't know what bomb this survey is going to drop on you, right? So I had, again, back to like Christina, I love like going back to our districts, but we had surveyed over the summer and saw there was 20-ish% that were going to be remote, and we had planned for it. When we did our commitment survey, it went up to 47% wanted to be remote, and then that was our bomb, and now we couldn't do hybrid. We didn't have enough teachers to teach both. So just really kind of be prepared for whatever comes out. And it could be something you completely didn't expect.
And the flip side bomb is another district I know about had the opposite discovery. And then they couldn't actually schedule the kids to be remote the way they planned to as a separate group. And they had to pivot to having the kids watch on a TV in the classroom because they just couldn't create a schedule at a high school level where they could group kids together to have that right educational experience. So yeah, the be prepared.
Yeah, we only have like 70 kids that are out of our 1,400 at Algonquin that are the standalone remote, which was surprising. We thought there would be more.
Yeah, we thought there'd be less, and then we had classrooms of 2 students, and then needing teachers to be able to pull out and teach, and just couldn't happen. So it is 2020, so you never know what's going to happen next. Next on our agenda tonight, it's a look at the 1000 series. It is getting late. I wanted to wrap up by 8:30 or so. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen, and I'd like members just to kind of call out things. I'll take a quick review over the policies, or the administration as well. Feel free to chime in of things that you think need to be updated. Most of these policies are extremely old, and really kind of have, I don't know, less weight in our modern kind of way of communicating with one another. So I wanted to share my screen. We'll take, sorry, wrong button. We'll take a quick look tonight. And then at our next management meeting, I'm hoping that we can spend more significant time working on this. Grab this. Okay. So for those who may not have visited these policies in quite some time, our 1000 series really deals with the school committee itself and our operations and what we do as a committee. So I wanted to kind of see really kind of where you guys think there are some stop gaps, point out what I've seen myself, and to see if there's places where you guys already feel that we can amend things, change things, and strengthen them to really kind of fit the work that we're doing today. So, for example, this one is fairly well updated. This is our powers and our duties, our jobs and responsibilities as a school committee. This one has been updated about 4 years ago, and to my knowledge, really kind of just fits what MASC is asking us to do and what laws and regulations are asking us to do. So it's one at the top of my priority list. But if anybody wants to turn to this one, I'm happy to add it to our list for the year. No, I like when we agree. It makes life. This is one about our member responsibilities. And again, this was more born out of MASC. This one, again, was updated in 16, the same as the other one. If you guys can just take a quick look at these bullet points. These are our duties and obligations as a school committee. If you find anything in there is no longer pertinent to 2020 or should be added to or deleted, I'd put this one on our agenda to look at. So,
Again, I have a process question for you. Are you intending to show us the policies by clicking? Because it was coming up in a new tab. We're not seeing that. Or are you just highlighting which?
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. This is not Zoom land. Let's see. So share this tab instead. Let me see if I can do this seamlessly. Do you have the new tab now? No. I'll try one more.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Thank you,
Yeah,
Ken. Sorry
thanks.
about that. Google Meets land.
Did you say had been recently, I can only see where it says 95. Had it been recently updated, did you say in 2016? Not the other one.
It's 16, so it's more modern than some of the others. But again, if there's anything in here, just let me know that we can
I do have a question about one of the bullet points that's sort of a little bit, I don't know. When it says that we represent the WRSDC to the general public, I mean, we do, but one of our other policies talks about who can speak for the committee and the way we do that. So that bullet point strikes me as a little in conflict with some of the content of one of our other ones that I've only looked at because of things I had to deal with the past 4 years.
I would agree as well. So that's one that I had a question with. That's a bullet point on this one. Yeah. So I think, could we look at this one? I'm going to put it on our list. I think it's a more simple one to look at, but this is one I had on the list. So that's P111. All right. I'm not going to belabor every single one that we have. Some of these are the ones that I really wanted to look at. So here's one that was important to me. So what I found interesting in this policy, so this is our member ethics policy. It's our responsibility towards the committee, then our responsibility toward the administration, and our relationships with other school committee members.
Did you mean our responsibility to the community?
Let me see, did I say that? It's community first, then administration, then one another. And then again, Ken, to your point, the speaking or acting for community. So if we're looking at 111, this would be another one that we need to also look at. This hasn't been amended since 14, so it is a little older. And I think that some of this could be modernized and really kind of made more pertinent to what we are doing today. So if there's no objection, this is one that I think that we can spend some time on.
I have no objection. This was a long, difficult conversation for those of us who are on the committee right now because it was being born of things that were happening at the time, and some of the language was specific to things people were doing, and I think we're kind of back in that same place. So I think we do have to have this conversation, but it was difficult then.
I imagine some of these conversations are not going to be fun, but I think they're important. I think they're born out of kind of what's going on right now and how we can be better for the future. You know, we're not all going to be on this committee forever, but I think it is our moral obligation to leave a roadmap for future members to follow.
No, I agree 100%.
Except for Scott, who's never leaving, ever.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, just bringing these up to review may help get them fresh in people's minds on what they should be doing anyway. So,
all right, we'll put that on the list. There's a lot of these, so I don't imagine we'll get through each one tonight, but at least if I can pull out the ones I was thinking of, I'd be happy for you guys to communicate with me ones that you're thinking of to add to the list.
yeah, I would do 1170 as well.
Yeah, this is my least favorite one. This one needs help. And so this obviously, this conversation is born out of a lot of the issues we're having with what is an OML violation and what is not. And we've had some very specific legal advice on this. What becomes interesting in here, and I think was an issue maybe 6 weeks or so now, and really just kind of is an open-ended question in our minds, is what is a deliberation and what constitutes that deliberation, and how does social media come into play with this, right? So we're not technically allowed to send an email out to one another because we may all read it and we may all then be deliberating in our minds or replying or whatnot. But when we do post on the internet and there's a quorum of us that could be reading it, how does that fit into this larger picture? And just being fair to one another, fair to the law and fair to the public. This, I think, might be an even harder conversation than 60. I think 70 is definitely going to be challenging.
It shouldn't be, because I mean, a lot of this is laid out in law. I know it will be, but this is something we should definitely have council review before, after, and during us making changes.
I agree.
And I think with this one, it is pretty, to Adam's point about legal, it is pretty much looking at the last couple paragraphs there, like from the law. I wonder though, in your comment about social media, if we need a policy, a creation of a policy about social media and potential OML violations due to that. So I wonder if there's a necessity to do that. Maybe that comes out of our conversation. Maybe there's one that our MASC already has. I think the OML doesn't particularly address social media, but that doesn't mean we can't have a policy that addresses it if we think that it's a potential really a liability or area that our members might accidentally violate OML.
Yeah, and I have the same concerns, right? Because I did reach out to MASC previously about this, and they're murky, right? So if you guys look at just right here, electronic messaging should not be used to discuss school committee matters that require public discussion over OML. According to MASC, their opinion is social media tools are messaging because you are communicating a message back and forth to one another. But there has not been legal precedent with an OML, a major OML violation regarding this. So MASC at least has remained murky. But I think that we could tighten this up. Again, think about this coming from 7 years ago is a long time ago. Things have changed immensely in the last 7 years. And again, I always come from that standpoint of equality and fairness. If some people are getting information via social media and others are not, we then kind of just, communicate to those who are available and don't communicate to those who don't use that forum. And that's not our job. Our job is to communicate to everyone.
Just a process suggestion. When we hired Joe Bartulis, he was very excited about coming for free to give presentations on policy sort of issues. So, he might be a useful person to even mediate a conversation about, not just the letter of the law, but how it's been put into practice and what things we need to be considering. Okay. He can go on, no offense if he's listening to this public meeting, but I think he would do it and potentially not really even charge us to do so.
No, I was just about to say that, Ken. Joe Bartulis would love to go over this. I'd be more than happy to do that in legal with him sometime in November. If we can wait that.
Of all the things I get excited about, policy's not even on the top 100, but I'm glad there's someone who enjoys it.
Oh my God.
And I can tell you, I just interject real quick. Saugus has a policy on social media specifically around school committee members and kind of the do's and don'ts.
Okay, I can look that up. Thank you.
And whatever we adapt, let's not put the name of anything in it, because when we changed it 7 years ago, we had to get rid of like Sims texts and stuff. So if we put Snapchat and Instagram in right now, whatever, new fadangled thing comes out, the chip in our brain, we'll have to edit it again.
You mean you don't go to your internet chat rooms much anymore?
Actually, I think it said Telegraph.
Yeah, I used it on the Vax, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, I would agree wholeheartedly with that one. There's one more in here. This one is interesting just because it's allowing the remote participation, but we're pretty much solely having remote participation at this moment. I don't think this is one that's on the top of my list at the moment, but my question comes, and I don't know if you guys have thought of this as well. If we do and when we do circle back to having in-person meetings, I want to also be respectful of anybody who is of high risk, who would not be comfortable coming in person to our meetings. And I want this remote participation to happen, but to happen better than we were having it before. So I don't know if this is a policy question or if it's more of a just an adjustment of how, because in my head, I'm trying to think those 3 steps ahead. How are these meetings going to be conducted in person if we have members, just like our teachers, that are going to opt out of being in person?
But Megan, my question with that would be, you just said if at high risk. Now, should that not left be up to the person, or is that something that people have to be sharing? Because you can have someone high risk, you can have somebody in the family high risk.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point. Just chooses not, but also wants to be an active member of this committee. How do we do both? And do we need policy to ensure that both are appropriate?
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, having attended meetings from the other side of the world, you know, you watch through the internet and you're 20 seconds behind because you can't hear through the phone, and then you have to respond through the phone. It's difficult. So I mean, there's definitely something you could do better. I mean, just doing this is better. Setting up whatever stream like this and being able to participate this way. There's got to be a better way. I agree.
Yeah, but I just don't want to hear, Governor Baker come out in October saying like we're ready to go and we don't have a plan. So I'd like for our next management meeting to probably be early October for us to start thinking about what that plan looks like, because I don't want to be caught off guard and not have something to move forward on.
You might want to think about reaching out. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, if we do it too well, though, my fear is that most members will do it remotely, and there'll be just like 6 of us sitting around the table.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's so many questions and not a lot of answers, but I do want to have some sort of plan in place.
I mean, we could probably have like the media group there, put whoever's speaking up on the screen or something, a large screen, and Zoom or Google Hangout the meeting. Kind of what the teachers are probably going to be doing. They're going to be teaching the kids in class and also be videoed for the kids at home.
Megan, I think it's a great idea because I'm thinking of myself, like I'd love to have some kind of plan because of course, due to my work and being a teacher and working in a school, I'm being forced to go into my work building. But as far as participation in these meetings, I would prefer not to be in a room with 20 or 30 other adults in the library in a mask and having to talk where I can actually see you all and talk to you here. So I would love for us to have something, of course, without the caveat of being high risk or having to identify any of that, but just maybe something temporary that says for a short term, hopefully short term, that says during this pandemic, the state of emergency pandemic situation, this is how remote participation can happen, with an eye towards in the future also seeing if we can beef up our regular remote participation for when people need to be, like to Adam's point, traveling and they're not able to participate. That's for a different reason, and that's under the law is for a different reason for remote participation than this type, which would be under the law, but pandemic related.
And you guys have done some of that with like suspension of policy and education and a pause for the year in order to make it work without having to fix it again once we're out of it, right, Christina?
And I think you might want to consider talking to Glenn or Tracy about if MASC is going to come out with some suggestions, because we don't have to necessarily redo their work. And there may be some lost things like, if you can be remote, but if a certain number of people are remote, they don't count the quorum. So we'll have to like have our policies, but MASC may do the work for us, and we can adapt it rather than, you know, start from scratch.
Thank you, guys. Okay. I'm going back to the list one last time here. Is there anything else that pops out to you guys, or would you be more comfortable just having a tiny bit of homework, kind of just thumbing through this list and pulling anything else out? Right now I have 111, 1160A, 1170, 1610.1 on my list. For our next meeting, would you guys be comfortable pulling out anything else that you think needs some work? Seeing some nods. Thank you, Adam. You're a good nodder.
I try to kind of emphasize it since I'm not talking.
All right. Okay, guys, thank you so much. So that's my big project for you guys for the year. There are other projects, of course. Moving on to our next item on our agenda is this SOA. Dr. McCall, has there been any updates from the State House on that?
Oh, boy, yeah. So it's actually been extended even further. So it's a couple months down the road. Commissioner Riley has said to superintendents on numerous occasions that, you know, the likelihood of us seeing this money is, you know, it's a little iffy. But he's really pushing this because he doesn't want the legislature to just drop it. So if he's afraid, if he says, yeah, you know what, don't worry about the SOA this year, we'll just pick it up next year, they'll drop it completely. So they're still fighting for it. We're just not sure when it's going to happen, but it's been pushed off in terms of what the expectations are for school districts.
Next on our agenda tonight is any advocacy updates. This was an item that we had briefly talked about during that power outage, of really just needing some clarification of where and what this is. Has anybody, Dr. McCall, have you dug up, maybe Ken, you know, now that you're here on the team, advocacy updates? That was something we didn't really have clarification on exactly where we're going with that.
Sure. We had at the beginning of last year a conversation about forming an advocacy subcommittee. Okay. That would be responsible for, you know, advocacy. So, you know, reaching out to our legislators and connecting with people like, you know, Lauren, who co-runs the I Am Wachusett group, who want to help us, right? Jana Brennan, folks like that. And we had been inviting them to every one of these meetings, one of those folks to share what they were doing. So in a way, it was because we think advocacy is important, and B, it was a way of not creating a whole committee to do it, so that we would have as a standing management item. And that's where we talked about things like, you know, resolutions to support funding and that sort of, so it always kind of came under that number, that heading.
Okay, so I don't think we have any for tonight, but I think that is a good thing to keep on the agenda moving forward. And if you have particular constituents you'd like to join to offer those updates, please do let me know and we'll make sure they're invited.
And last year was Lauren Salmon Garrett and Jana Brennan who would come.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm so sorry, but I went to plug my computer in and hit my off button on my computer, the sleep button on my computer. So I missed the section on advocacy. I just got the very end part, which I think is you were going to ask people to come, or I don't know what you said. So what can I put in the minutes? Can someone summarize for me?
Moving forward, we're going to be reaching out to stakeholders to join our meetings, and then also continue some advocacy with the State House and other stakeholders as well. This might look very different this year than it has in years past, but it doesn't mean it's not important.
And this is also a place where Heidi would give updates on what MTA was doing for advocacy at the state level, to see if there's ways we could coordinate with WREA on pushing for funding and such.
All right, you on board, Mary? You're going to give it? Can you help us next time?
Actually, Heidi is still on the state level, so she's on the state regional board. So
okay,
I'll let her know. She'll be happy.
All right, thank you.
I'm learning the local stuff right now. You guys are keeping me very busy.
We try. It's a team effort. Under old business tonight, moving forward, district indicators, I'm going to take that off of old business now that it has been distributed to our subcommittees. Celebrating academic excellence. Dr. McCall, we are just starting to get rolling, but I think we're going to see some awesome things moving forward. So it would be my request that at our next management meeting, that maybe you choose a student at each of the 3 levels, maybe a high school student, middle school student, and an elementary student that you've seen do something pretty incredible during remote learning, and we can share their successes at our next management meeting, if that's okay. I got Daryl, you got a good nod.
Yeah, I was just trying to get that. So are you looking for them to come to the meeting?
I would love to invite them to the meeting as well, and then to share their successes. It might be easier for them to join remotely than in person, but I would love to celebrate the successes of our students.
Would we celebrate here, or would we celebrate at the main meeting where their parents might be watching?
I would recommend the main meeting. And I mean, maybe select who we're going to in this subcommittee, and then, you know, at the main meetings, we have that presented. I think that'd be great.
It would be awesome. It'd be someone other than us just talking at the screen. I would love to see from those kiddos what they've been up to.
And maybe give them and their teachers a guidance about how long you mean for them to talk.
Yeah. 2 minutes, not a second over, Ken.
Well, we did do that a few years ago. Well, a few years ago now, several years ago. Each building principal would have students come and do a presentation, and some of them were longer than others. Let's just say that. But they were all good. They were all good.
Great. Are we still moving forward, Dr. McCall, with the Holden Pupil Population Task Force, or is that on pause at the moment?
That's on hold.
Okay. So Christina, we'll take off the indicators and we'll take off the Population Task Force for the moment. I also had asked, so Ken, you might be my person here as well. I had asked Rebecca, and she also didn't know exactly why this draft policy is on here. It's draft policy 5263.2, policy relating to personnel management stipend positions.
I do know. So 2 contracts ago, Mary can maybe confirm this or not, the WREA asked us to look at that because there was internal concern, I think, amongst their members about how some positions became stipended and some didn't. Like, do you have to have a club for so long before it gets a stipend? Do you have to, because some teachers did work to have a club that doesn't a stipend, and some get stipends for lesser work was the perception. It didn't seem to be a priority for WREA in their last negotiations, but we just kind of stuck on the agenda since then so that we could, if we had to come back to it or not.
Mary, do you want to reach out to your membership to see if this is something you want to work on, or if this is something you're happy to take a pause on?
You know what? I'm going to reach back out. I'm 90% sure that I know the answer. Okay. But 90% is not enough to put it on a recorded public meeting. So I will get the answer and get back to you.
Thank you, Mary. That'd be appreciated.
You're welcome.
So we can shrink our list a little bit because I know our cup runneth over. As far as new business for our next meeting, do members have anything they would like to add for management to work on?
I would just maybe earlier in the meeting when we were talking about the informational sessions and such, maybe if it's just that schedule sort of, Megan, that you were talking about of what is the communication plan for the community, I guess. It doesn't have to be formal plan, but like what are the dates when there's going to be, or target weeks when communications would happen. And that's all. I don't know what we'd call that, but.
I do have a quick new business also that we should talk at some point about the strategic plan. That kind of came up tonight at our evaluation committee, and it's about to expire or be done with.
Okay. So we've got strategic plan and just a general timeline of, what would you say, community listening and information sessions, Christina?
Sure.
And the real horror, to just put it on your burner for next year, but we should start planning this year, is the regional agreement. I think we have one more year. This is our last year of the regional agreement. So you'll have to be thinking about a process for moving forward. I think we don't have to do it this year, but you might want to double check whether we have to, because it was 2016 when is the date of my signature on that. And I think it's every 5 years.
I think
So Daryl's
smiling.
head's about to explode, but
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's.
Can we just get a one-year extension on it?
Well, let's just extend it. Let's just. Yes. So that will have to be another item that we kind of bring forth as well.
All right. I'd like to set our October meeting before we leave this evening, since we have everyone here. I think it'd be pertinent to meet probably in the latter half of the month again to give some people time to breathe. So I'm looking at the week of the 19th and looking at the week of the 26th. Are there any dates? Mondays, I'm not sold to Mondays since we pretty much meet multiple nights a week anyway. Are there particular days or times that are better for others? Daryl, what's your schedule look like? Do you have those 2 weeks open?
That Wednesday,
Yep.
like the 21st or the 28th, would either one of those would work.
I'm free both dates as well. 21st is a little better for me.
Yeah.
Does that work for others?
Yeah.
All right. Let's
Yeah.
do this.
What we're trying to stay away from are just the negotiation time frame. I mean, we're going to do some of them during the day, but we're going to run into probably some later afternoon, evening ones as well.
All right. Do you guys want to do 7, and do you want to move it up a little bit to 6:30 so you can get done earlier? Up to you guys.
Earlier the better.
I'm better earlier as well. Can we do 6:30? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So let's do 6:30 on the 21st, if you guys want to mark your calendars. And then Christina, with your minutes, let Rebecca know for me. All right. With that being said, I promise 8:30. It's 8:29. Do I have a motion to adjourn on the floor?
So moved.
Any second?
second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Member Young,
Yes.
Member Brown,
Brown, yes.
Member Mills,
Mills, yes.
Member Smith,
Smith, yes.
Member Silva,
Silva, yes.
Member Dennis,
Dennis, yes.
and the chair votes yes. I will see you guys on Wednesday evening. Thank you so much for a great meeting tonight.
Bye.
All right,
Take care.
thanks.